Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and today we're going to be talking about that exciting subject that is the leak that got spread around everywhere after being posted on 4chan. And as per usual, the rumor mill continues to throw anything at the wall to see what sticks, and this is perhaps the most egregious case of all, using vague terms and using words GW has already said themselves that they're doing, to make them sound like there's some groundbreaking leaks. Let's get into it. Now the first thing, they lead with some believable leaks, but they're not actually leaks. They say all resin will be phased out by 2025. Now the reason I say this isn't a leak is because GW already said they're phasing out resin. I don't understand how this is supposed to be some groundbreaking leak. They even said they're working on plastic titans. And there's some in the rumor mill saying that a Warhound is already far along in production. So once again, not a leak. Resin is pricier to make and harder to maintain, as well as being less selling because it's more expensive. So obviously GW is going to move towards plastic. And with their current releases in the Horus Heresy being in resin, I believe that the ones that sell the best will simply be repackaged in plastic in due time. They also mentioned that the Beast of Chaos were moved to the Old Worlds for a new range there that they wouldn't have to develop. But once again, that's not a leak. That's just what happened, what GW said. So how is this a leak? Regardless, moving on. They mentioned Kislev, which are sort of the Russians of the Old World, were shelved due to the real world war going on, which is, that's completely reasonable and is likely the case. They also mentioned, strangely, that Cathay is not getting models, which is strange because they never had models, and the Old World is pretty much exclusively pre-existing models with some updates to their ranges. So no, Cathay were never even on the table, and Araby might be coming back, which is as vague as saying the sky might be cloudy tomorrow. The Araby were a relatively unpopular range with a few metal models in the past, so if they come back, wow. If they don't, oh whoa. They also mentioned the Old World is slightly underperforming, but that's kind of hard to quantify. GW is a private company that doesn't publish their sales numbers, and said that the Vampire Counts will be returning by 2025, with the people in Sigmar apparently being distanced a little more to keep the Flesh Eater Courts and the Vampire Counts more separate, which is probably true, because the Vampire Counts were a pre-existing range in Warhammer Fantasy. Why wouldn't they come back to the Old World at some point or another? Once again, literally just nothing being said that hasn't already been said by GW. The next step covers more so on fantasy and some of the sub-games. They mentioned that Underworlds is entering its final year due to poor performance, which seems strange to me since Underworlds has undeniably performed worse than Underworlds has. I have never in my life, in all the game stores I've been in, seen someone play a single game of Warcry. I've never seen someone play it. In fact, I don't even know how it's played. The only people I know who know how to play it are the people at my local Warhammer store because they're employees and they need to know how to play every game. But I suppose as a niche sub-game, it's not necessarily out of the question that it could end after an extended few years run. They mentioned Imperialis is underperforming, which is again a niche 6mm game that is, by its very nature, not going to be as widely appealing as every other miniature game that they do. And they say it will end in 2 years, which seems like it is possible, but also completely up to chance. There could easily be a resurgence in interest in the same way that the Horus Heresy got, even throughout its lifespan. And this is another one of the more unbelievable ones. Necromunda and Horus Heresy are selling well, which I believe, and for some reason they say are the most stable games for the foreseeable future, which is just pure nonsense. It is by far no secret that 40K performs better than any other game GW makes, selling out pretty much every single weekend with very few exceptions. And people will often point to the fact that that's a stock issue, but if you look at eBay, I don't think it is, because almost an endless amount of these boxes that they sell will end up on eBay. So clearly, plenty are being made. There's just plenty of people who are looking to buy them. And unless they institute a queue system, like they did for every other major box release, which I don't know why people think is some sort of out there possibility, They did it for Horus Heresy. They did it for Sigmar. They did it for 10th edition. Again, don't know why people think that wouldn't happen. But unless they implement that queue on every weekend, they are going to sell out pretty fast. And here's another point that is, again, just sort of nothing. They say Lord of the Rings is seeing an uptick in sales, obviously, because Lord of the Rings has new media coming out. Even though it is controversial, that has gotten people talking about it, and a lot of people going back to rewatch the original 3 movies. So, obviously, with more people being interested in Lord of the Rings right now, Lord of the Rings sales go up, as well as that new starter edition from, like, last year. Wow, this guy's truly the Nostradamus of our time. He also mentions, expect more range culls like the Stormcasts, which is, could it happen? Yeah, but there are very few ranges with the size of Stormcasts. And the Stormcasts are essentially going through Primarisification. Their firstborn kits, if you will, are mostly being axed and remade. They may mention that a lot of kits are going out of production, and I almost guarantee almost all the infantry squads will simply be redone for the new edition. Sort of like how they do it for Space Marines, because they function the same way in marketing. The only thing that probably won't be coming back is a bunch of the characters that nobody cares about. I'm sorry to say it. It's just how it is. And there's apparently a new mandate where customers will replace their army every 3 to 4 years, which I just don't really get what that means. GW only benefits for keeping ancient kits on sale. There's a reason that the Orc Boys just turned 23 this year. It's because all of the R&D has been paid for. These things are essentially pure profit. For the cents on the dollar that the packaging costs, they can just sell these things and make effectively 99.9% profit every single time they sell one. Why would GW want to implement something where they stop selling kits? That is literally just a stupid move. And you may say, well, GW is run by stupid people. No, they know how to make money. They are, I assure you, they are not as stupid as you think they are. If a kit doesn't sell well, it's probably going to go away at some point. But there's a reason warp spiders are still on sale all these years later. From there, we're getting on to 40k. And the 40k section is, again, a lot of sort of just nothing. They mentioned Death Guard, AdMech, and Genestealer Colts, and Space Marines will all lose a few units. Let's run through these one by one. Space Marines. It is obviously the last edition of Firstborn. Genestealer Colts have a metric ton of characters, which would likely be reboxed or shelved at some point or another, because there's just way too many of them. AdMech is a tiny range with a very noticeable relic, being the Engine Seer from the Guard range, which will likely be redone and then just exclusive to Guard. And the Death Guard have a couple characters from the Chaos Space Marine range, which are coincidentally old and getting redone. I wonder if that could be why they're being removed. Makes you think, doesn't it? And then here is the one that very clearly makes this entire leak just nonsense. Is that Grey Knights will no longer be an army, supposedly being replaced by Custodes? I guess? Which makes little to no sense. And let me get into why. The Death Watch, their former Imperial ally companions, who infamously are the least popular Space Marines that sell the least amount of kits, for some reason would be staying in their own codex. But Grey Knights would be wrapped up into, presumably, that codex Imperial agents. I'm not sure why the other Imperial agent Space Marines wouldn't also be wrapped up in that. But, hey, I guess. But it's very obvious that GW loves nothing more than selling Space Marines. There's a reason Chaos Space Marines have been seeing literal years and years and years of model support after such long neglect. It's because GW realized there are more Space Marines to sell. So, more Space Marines to sell means more money, because Space Marines consistently sell the best out of every faction. They bring up the introduction of mini codexes for more narrative games and mini campaign books to go along with them. With the supposedly leaked Imperial Agents Codex being the first one, and a book that they call Battle Tome Blighted Crusade, which I find weird that they would include what seems to be a fantasy book in a section about 40k, but hey, maybe this guy just doesn't have all the lights on upstairs and he forgot what game he was talking about 3 words after he, mentioned it. And they bring up in their last point they're focusing on faster and smaller games. This isn't a leak. This is literally what GW said with the release of Combat Patrol and the release of 10th edition in general. This is apparently an attempt to Wizards of the Coastify Games Workshop comparing commander decks to Combat Patrols, which is not a leak. That is literally just what Combat Patrol is. And they're apparently trying to get people to collect little bits of every faction instead of just collecting one faction forever, which is what Combat Patrol already is. Again, this isn't a leak. This is legit just what GW themselves said about Combat Patrol. This is one of the most unbelievable points by far. It's not even a leak. This is just what Combat Patrol is. How stupid do you have to be to believe this? And he has this bonus gossip about just nonsense. He brings up some pointless trivia, like the Tomb Kings sold better than the Bretonnians, which obviously they did. Tomb Kings are famous for having an extremely short life before they were axed, with a lot of great models. People wanted to get those models for a long time and didn't want to pay secondhand prices for them, so obviously Tomb Kings sold better than Bretonnians. Wow, who would have thunk it? They also mentioned that things like Warhammer stores are closing more than they had in the last 20 years, which I guess, sure. I haven't really noticed that. Almost every city I've been to actually has a Warhammer store these days, so I'm not exactly sure where they're getting that. They also bring up at the end the Daemon Kulaba, which is a piece of lore I won't get into. But they also make a jab at a specific person who apparently goes to Warhammer World a lot, who apparently does it all the time, and their name is Greg. That just seems like it's just nothing. It's just not a person. It's just something they made up because they know the Demon Kulaba is a meme in the Warhammer community. And they also mentioned how Citadel Colors is likely being shrunken, but I also doubt that because Citadel Colors sell extremely well and are very well liked by the people that use them, even with competition like Pro Acryl and Vallejo. So this is very clearly just some person making some part of my friends making shit up, or just taking what GW said, shuffling the words around to make it sound like something new, and then wrap it up in a nice 4chan leak bow, and they just hope that they're as believed as that dude who leaked all the Chaos Space Marine stuff was. They also mention how GW does the leaks of models and codexes on purpose. I don't think they do it on purpose. I think they do it just, they send these things out with the knowledge they will be leaked, because why would they do it themselves when they can have some random in a mail truck do it for them? It's just easier. They don't have to pay anyone. So they obviously just ship these boxes out to distributors, and then the person delivering it will take a picture of it usually. That's not... I don't think it's some grand conspiracy. It's just they know what's going to happen because it drums up talk. Why would they, intervene? That's pointless. Anyways, to wrap it up, it's just the sources. Dude, trust me. That's what this is. Anyways, I've been Spoons Rattling. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.